Hello, everyone, and welcome to another inspiring edition of Business Day Millennial Hangouts. I am your host and
Mm.
moderator, Ethel Adonu, and I am so glad to have you join us for today's conversation, which is one that truly resonates with our generation. Our topic for today is mental health and awareness for millennials. You know, our generation has been called many things, from the hustle generation to the burnout generation and also the always online generation. And that's because we are ambitious, constantly pushing to make things happen. But behind all those energy and passion, there is a quiet struggle many of us face, which is the pressure to hold it all together. From balancing work to personal growth and relationship in this hyper-connected world, maintaining good mental health has become more important than ever. It's not just about avoiding burnout or stress. It's all about finding balance in building resilience and protecting our peace in a world that never seems to slow down. That's why today's discussion matters a lot. We'll be talking about breaking the silence, normalizing vulnerability, and learning practical ways to care for our minds and thrive in every part of life. So, if you have ever felt anxious, overwhelmed, or just tired of keeping it all together, you are definitely in the right place. Thank you for joining us. As always, I am not here alone. We have got exceptional panel of thought leaders and mental health advocates who are deeply passionate about creating awareness and helping our generations build healthier and balanced lives. So I'll be giving them brief time to introduce themselves to you all before we proceed. Now, permit me to start with Olu Bukola Latunji. Thank you for joining us, Ma. Please, can you kindly introduce yourself?
Thank you so much for having me. My
Thank
name
you.
is Olubukola Latunji. I'm a pharmacologist. I'm a seasoned banker. I retired as a general manager of Zenith Bank. Basically, I am a wellness and health enhancer. I'm a leadership mentor. And of course, the topic of today, which is mental health, is particularly very, 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 very close to my heart because wellness is about everything. Your peace is non-negotiable. That is what I'm about. Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Permit me to also call on Glory Chinecherem Uzoigwe. Thank you for joining us, Glory. Kindly introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone, distinguished guests. My name is Glory Tinecherim Ozoigwe. I am a pediatric and maternal health, nutrition and health coach. I am also a complementary medical associate. And, I am also an autism specialist, and cases and causes around mental health is one that is very, very dear to my heart because of the current, lack of awareness and stigmatization around people who are currently going through these mental health issues, especially within the millennials and also around children. So I'm super excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. We can't wait to hear all you have for us today. Joining us also is Chelma
All
Pakorede.
right.
Thank you for joining us, Chelma. Kindly introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Choma Fakorede. I like to go by the Vulnerability Queen. I have an NGO for mental health. I've actually been running it for 10 years now. It's called Ola Marquez Foundation. Basically, we raise awareness and provide support for people living with mental health conditions. And just recently, we started something like an offset of what we do, which is called Ume. Ume is an Igbo word which means breath. So we are creating spaces for women to breathe. So yeah, basically, you find me anywhere they call mental health or say mental health.
All right. Thank you for joining us today, Chioma. Thank you. The vulnerability queen, right? Thank you. Good to have you here. We are also joined by,
Yes.
yeah, thank you. We're also joined by Anthony Chamaka Osiegbunam. Thank you for joining us, Chamaka. Kindly introduce yourself.
Hi, okay, thank you so much for having me here today. My name is Amaka. I like to be called Amaka for short. I'm many things, but I'm a trained social worker, policy advocate. I'm also the author for a book called A Girl, Her God, and Her Mental Health. I've also been in the mental health space for close to 10 years. I run a foundation called Donville Mental Health Awareness Foundation, which has been in operation for close to 7 years. I work with adolescents, young adults, and the general population on mental health awareness. So mental health is what I do, is what I breathe, and what I live.
Thank you for joining us, Amaka. Good to have you here with us. And finally, we have Chinedum Victor. Thank you for joining us, Victor. Can you introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. My name is Chinedum Victor. I am a pharmacist, a public health practitioner, and also a communication strategist. And I began my journey in community pharmacy, but majority of my career has seen me delving into mental health, especially for youths and working professionals. My work majorly sits at the intersection of health equity, mental well-being, and majority of the initiatives and the projects that I work on center around helping individuals, organizations, help even their staff design initiatives that don't just raise awareness, but actually help to make their mental health much more better, increase their productivity. At the heart of everything that I have done in the past 3 years while we're working on various mental health initiatives is to increase the access to mental health and majorly emotional wellness, considering that most of the people that I work with and most of the working class professionals that I work with are based in Lagos. And we all know how Lagos is, how stressful Lagos is. So yes, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for having me.
All right, thank you for joining us, Victor. Good to have you. And as you can see, we have got brilliant panelists here with us today who are well grounded in the area of mental health and awareness. So stay tuned while we proceed. And of course, I would like to thank every one of you watching us live on Business Day Television. We are thrilled to have you join this conversation. Now let's proceed with the Q&A section. But before we dive into the conversation, we'll be exploring the realities of mental health for millennials. You know, the challenges, the stigma, and the practical ways to build balance and emotional strength in our everyday lives. So I'm going to be asking them questions in no particular order. All right, let me start with Olubukola. Okay, so my question for you, Olubukola, is we're talking about understanding mental health and the challenges around it. So what are some common mental health challenges faced by millennials and how can they be addressed?
Okay, so thank you very much for that question. Like I will start with who are really the millennials. Like we know people born somewhere between 1981 to like 1996, thereabout, and they are what we call the bridge between the analog and the digital. So there are people who understand, what it was when we didn't have internet. There are people who understand what it was when we now have internet. So they're basically juggling with a whole lot of things. And in our own setup here, as in Nigeria, I like to localize a whole lot, even though it's a general and global thing. What are the major factors that millennials actually face in terms of the things that affect their mental health? Okay, I will start with, of course, financial issues. Financial issue is a major issue that millennials face, because as they were getting out of school and they have all these shifts that is happening, you can imagine the kind of stress that they are facing, doing that. And another issue that they face is, they're old enough, so they face like family issues, Some of them, in terms of whatever it is that is happening in their family, that is an issue that they can face. For females and males, do you know how Nigerians are in terms of our culture and stuff like that, things they expect you to be able to come up with, putting you under pressure. I call it the Nigerian pressure cooker, and that can be a source of stress for a whole lot of millennials. And how, will they be dealing with such issues? Okay. Then another issue that I will be talking about is about what I call the Japa syndrome. Basically, they are coming in at a time when things are really, really feeling very, 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 very stressful. And, and you have this issue that, the people who have left, they have a comparison, stress issue on that. They're doing well. They show all kinds of things on social media and whatever. And you're thinking, oh, I'm here. What am I doing with myself and stuff like that? So that is a source of stress. And of course, like I said, we're all in the digital age. So that social pressure is there too, in terms of social comparison, what we see, on social media, and how it impacts on our mental health, because we kind of compare ourselves to what's happening. Then I will talk about the systemic stressors too. You know how it is, constant battle with so many things here: electricity, traffic, Lagos, Abuja, and of course, infrastructure. That is stressful to our system. Okay, so that is very, very important. And then the last issue I'll talk about is the hustle of burnout. Just basically, trying to succeed in this our challenging economy is a source of burnout for a lot of millennials. I mean, it's a really big thing, and it's something that we really have to focus on and see how can we, how are we able to navigate ourselves around all this stuff. For me, it's about mental health is not a taboo. It is something that we have to talk about. I mean, if we're ill physically, we go to the hospital. So if we have issues too that are bothering us, we have to be able to find help to help us, to sort through that. So that's very, very, very important. We must care for that. We must look at how do we put all this together to make us well holistically. I have what I will call a mental toolkit, which I believe that all millennials should start, to implement, put in place to help them with how they cope with all these stressors that are around us all the time. I'll talk about what I say, digital coffee. Is it possible that you say, okay, at this point in time, I have to put my phone away because it is time for me to, take a break? Because sleep is one area where we can really, really help to calm down and not so much stress. Something I missed out in some of the things that stress us as millennials, especially as women, is if you look at it now, the millennials you have a whole lot of millennials now that are over 40. In short, I'll say from 35. And they have the issues too that affect their health in terms of perimenopause, okay? And they don't even know how it is affecting them. And once you have hormones and stuff like that start to decline, it even adds more pressure to the kind of to what they're already feeling. And sometimes it doesn't make them cope very well. Okay, so in terms of the toolkit, I'll talk about what I say, intentional movement. Movement is very important. That is exercise. I mean, it doesn't have to be you're going to the gym to spend 200 hours there. No, just be intentional about moving. Keep moving your body. If you're the kind of person that does office work, make sure that at some certain intervals, you get up to walk around and stuff like that. In whatever it is you're doing, look for something that you feel very, very, very happy doing, that gives you joy. If you like to dance, intentional moving, always move your body. Another thing is the power of saying no. It is very important, especially in terms of family and pressure and stuff like that. How do you cope with that? You can't do everything. You can't be everything to everybody. So you have to learn how to say no to some things, even in terms of social engagements and stuff like that. You know how we are here. You want to go to party, all kinds of things, all kinds of financial commitments. People get stressed by that too, and you really don't know what is happening. So please, the power of no is very, very important. Okay. And you have to just engage in activities that you love. It's very, very important for us to do that. Another thing I will talk about is, when you share a problem, it's your problem solved. Shared is problem house solved. So let us know the power of shared understanding. Let us understand that vulnerability is the birthplace of connection by, mentioned by Brené Brown. It's very important that we understand what we're going through and we try to share it with somebody, a trusted person, a trusted friend, family, whoever, who can help us, to navigate through some of those things and lessen, the stress, the cortisol level that we keep carrying in our system that actually pins us down. We have to able to listen, to understand, because now it could be us on the other side of listening to somebody's issues. It's very, very important for us to do that. So, in my conclusion, I would say that our mind is our greatest asset. We should invest in it. We should ensure that, okay, we do things that calm our mind. We should not try as much as possible not to take on too much. And in terms of financial and the people and struggling with, what we're doing, it's not as if anybody is lazy. Everybody is trying their best, but we need to learn that these kind of things take time and it would work. All right. And of course, most importantly, to extend compassion to yourself. Know that you are putting in effort. Know that you are granting yourself the grace to move on. And ask for help when it becomes impossible for you to carry this. Never, ever be ashamed. There's nothing wrong, okay? There's physical health, there's mental health. When we are down physically, we seek help. So there is no reason why we cannot seek help when we're down mentally. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Olubukola. That was amazing. You have totally summarized what we are here to talk about. Thank you. And talking about prioritizing exercise, a while ago, I saw a post on social media where a lady was like, for people that don't go to the gym, it was more like they are missing out and they are not taking their exercises serious. And he posed a question to me, what happened to other form of exercising, having to work out in your house and, people that also even run. So I think, again, the social pressure is getting too much, and that's why conversations like this is pretty much important. And thank you for also highlighting the need for people to love themselves, love yourself and, find a way to always forge ahead and encourage yourself. I think that is very, very important. Thank you so much, Olubukola. Let me move to the next speaker, Glory. I think this question will be for you, Glory. Yes. How can millennials prioritize their mental health and well-being in today's fast-paced world?
Well, okay, so thank you for that question. As millennials, I think I'm going to be diving deep into conversations around nutrition for millennials, right? Because we hear people talk about the exercise, love yourself, prioritize sleep, but oftentimes the nutrition aspects of support for millennials when it comes to mental health are often neglected. People feel like it's negligible, right? But it is not. It is not. And I'm going to tell you why. There's something called the serotonin. So it is the feel-good neurotransmitter. It is responsible for our tolerance for pain. It is responsible for, how happy we are, our moods, So this neurotransmitter actually thrives on particular nutrients. So when we talk about mental health, right, it has a lot to do with our brain. And the brain has its specific nutrients that it needs to be fed. If you're not feeding it those nutrients, it will not be its efforts and the result that it is able to give will not be optimized. So when you go to the hospital, maybe someone is depressed and they go to the hospitals prescribe antidepressants for this person. Those antidepressant medications are targeting the serotonin. That's basically what they do, to go there and ensure that this particular neurotransmitter begins to function at an optimized level. But as before it gets to the point where the person is having to seek medical help, I believe it is actually preventable if we look into our diets as millennials, consuming things that are very rich in omega-3 fatty acid, this particular omega-3 fatty acid is food for the serotonin. And if this serotonin neurotransmitter is being, adequately catered for through our diet, it's actually going to now help prevent causes of this mental health before it, spirals out and becomes, out of control. And then the person has to now seek help and do all of that. If we are conscious enough to look into our diet, targeting specific nutrients such as this omega-3 fatty acid that you can find in things like salmon, fish, you can find in things like mackerels. There's a daily value of twice daily for seafood. So if as millennials, we're conscious enough to ensure that in every week, we are able to consume 2 DVs of these, omega-3 rich meals from sources such as consuming salmon or consuming fish or consuming walnuts or chia seed or even flax seed, just to ensure that we are building up on these nutrients. There are also nutrients such as the theanine, which are the B vitamins are very essential for millennials because, we do a lot of mental work. And so our brain, when we look at the brain, it's not just the brain. We're looking at a lot of things that are inside. And studies have shown that the neuroplasticity of our brain is really dependent on the value of the nutrients that is coming in our food. So when we talk about conversations around this mental health for millennials, I think millennials need to really look deeply into the meals that they are consuming, to be very very intentional about the things that get on our plates, right? Especially because of the volume of
All right, thank you so much, Glory. Thank you for, taking us through that angle of nutrition and why millennials need to start taking their diet serious. Thank you. I think it was just another beautiful angle to this conversation because, when we talk about mental health, we tend to like sharing the idea that sometimes our meal consumption also contributes to our total mental well-being. So thank you so much. That was very brilliant. That will take us to the next question, and it will be for you, Victor. How can we reduce the stigma that still surrounds mental health conversation? Thank you so much. I think we have to go on a very quick break, and when we come back, we're going to continue this conversation. Thank you for joining us, Anthony, in Business Day Television.
In that time. And the last thing I want to chip in is, as millennials, we can also be more empathetic towards ourselves and towards others. I look around our world today and I think the missing spice is just empathy. People have, thrown empathy through the window. And when something happens, that's why when you see a lot of bile, when something happens, people are like going towards the negative. They're trying to gone down this person. We just want to really be aggressive, and it doesn't help. It doesn't help because already as millennials, we're already going through a very difficult phase. So the more support we can get, the better our lives. So I'm just going to end it with this final thought that while we're prioritizing diet, let us also spread empathy and also consider alternative options for exercise such as meditation, yoga, journaling, and just being present. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Glory. Thank you. That was super amazing. Thank you for taking us through that angle of nutrition and why we need to prioritize our diet. Thank you. It was super amazing. Now let's look at another question. That will be for you, Victor. How can we reduce the stigma that still surrounds mental health conversation?
Okay, thank you very much for that question. It's in our country, Nigeria, when people talk about mental health, the next thing people are thinking of is they're talking of a serious psychopathic issue. And that's like a stigma that a lot. So it makes it hard for people to open up and say, okay, and tell people, say it openly that, oh, I think I'm actually having a mental health breakdown. I think I need to get this checked out. And then you find, especially a lot of millennials, going through a whole lot and they are not speaking out. Now, stigma falls in when three things happen together: stories, contact, and language. Now, take for example, every millennial, majority of millennials actually have family lives. You understand? Most of them are working professionals, and for a lot of them, it is hard for them to open their mouth and just talk about and tell someone, whether it be in the office or whether it's someone who is close to them, and then open their mouth and tell them, someone else, that, oh, I think I'm actually having a mental health breakdown, because that could actually be an avenue for the other person to take advantage of that. But what we miss in our current day generation is the ability for someone to tell you that, okay, or rather, like the previous speaker said, empathy, for someone to tell you that, oh, I think I'm actually having a mental health breakdown, and then you guide them and then you tell them, okay, these are the things that you need to do. And the moment, I think the first point for us to with stigma is the moment we can start speaking up more about it, which is what most of the other speakers are doing beautifully well. The moment we can start speaking out about it and encouraging people to talk about it, that in its own way would kill the stigma. The moment we can go to schools and start talking about this to the younger ones, the Gen Zs, you understand? The moment we can have there are programs, initiatives that we organize for workplace professionals, where we put them around the corner and ask them talk about how they feel. The moment we can still have more of this for millennials, that would enable or help to reduce the stigma and the mindset that they actually have about mental health. And it's not just the millennials. We have to start from those who are coming behind us, so that when they get to our age, or when they get to the age of the millennials currently, they don't actually have to face that same stigma. One of the things I also talk about in some of our initiatives is sometimes there is the idea that when someone says they have a mental health issue, they're classified as mad, or in some cases, some of them are perceived as weak. And I'm a very religious person, a very spiritual person, but then sometimes it's also referred to as the spirit of sadness. There are a lot of words and languages that are associated with mental health. And the moment people begin to associate mental health majorly with these words, the stigma attached to them would still keep on going on. But the moment we can take away those words, either madness or weakness or the spirit of sadness, the moment we can detach these words from proper mental health or any mental health issue, or even mental health on its own, I think that would be another step to reducing the stigma around mental health. Also, the media plays a very strong role in the stigma around mental health. What is the media telling everyone about mental health? What are journalists saying about mental health? What are social media, our content creators? What are the people that a lot of millennials look up to? What are, not even just the media, what are the pastors? What is everyone in the community society? What are they saying? What is the media pushing out about mental health? You understand? We need to start. There was a trend one time on TikTok where a content creator posted that they were thinking of committing suicide, and then they made like a I'm not minimizing anyone's struggles, but they made content and then it blew up, and then you could see a lot of people thinking that, okay, maybe suicide was like like some luxurious content viral generating USC. And those are the kind of things that we need to watch out for, because when you have content creators who glamorize suicide, you understand, it makes suicide look like it's a serious mental health issue. It begins to create a different idea for people. So for the media, let's have I know there are some media shows, and there are like the other women, the beautiful people who are on this show with me, who are also doing their own bits. If we can have help lines added to as many shows as possible, if you could have some of these skit makers and music labels, some of the people in social media who people look up to, we can have them talk more and shed more light on mental health. That would go a long way in also reducing stigma. At certain workplaces that I work with, there's this initiative that I work on with the HR department or the HR managers in these organizations, where it's like a reward sensitization program. So for every time you come to speak to the HR about a mental health issue or a problem, or if you're feeling burnt out, you understand, you get some sort of reward. That way, it makes it easier for people, both millennials in the workplace. It makes it easier, even as friends of the millennials. It makes it easier for your friends or people around you to open up to you and talk to you and say, okay, this is what I'm going through, and I just need someone to talk to. I need someone to talk to with it. Things like that, behaviors like that, incentives like that would help everyone one way or the other. Millennials, Gen Zs, every single person, would enable them to open up and speak up. And this, once people can speak up about these things, because a closed mouth, they say, is a closed destiny. And if you don't speak out and if you don't talk out, no one can really know how. And many millennials grew up in an age where they were told it was the best thing to do was to keep it in. You understand? So the moment we can not just reduce the stigma, but enable people to talk more about it, it would help them to get the help that they need. You understand? And when they get the help that they need, it is easy to track that help and follow through with it. And you realize that once everyone begins to see, especially with the media, with how we educate people about it, the moment we begin to do that and we begin to see people talk more about it, be much more open about it, we'll see an increase in productivity, in the quality of life. And in the long run, people will begin to see that mental health is not really a bad thing. You understand? You can open up and you talk about it, and then you can get the help that you actually need.
Right. Thank you so much, Victor. Thank you very much. That was actually amazing. Thank you for also highlighting another angle, which is the spiritual aspect and also the media aspect, because a lot has been going on social media. And, I think we don't even talk about the fact that, people fear to cry out for help because they feel like at some certain level they are, people are going to shame them, like, oh, you are having a certain kind of problem. Or we see a lot about celebrities coming out to cry out of having mental issues, and people are there not believing and all of that. So thank you so much. I think we need to do better. Thank you. Now let's look at the other segment, which is the digital connection. So my question would be for Chamaka. How does social media impact mental health, and what strategies can millennials use to maintain a healthy online presence?
Thank you so much for that question. I think it's very important that we talk about social media because, I am always on my phone, and I know everyone here is always on their phone. Most of the times we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we're scrolling. And something that I find, I would say, importantly, as everyone has pointed out, is the importance of awareness. It's very important that we are aware as a generation. And I think that social media plays a critical role in that. I think Victor also spoke about how it's important because in this day of having influencers, having social media active people, it's really important that these people also speak about mental health awareness. But I also like to emphasize the importance of speaking about mental health in the right context. So many times what we do hear about a lot of the time is emotional health, which is an angle of mental health, but not as deep in that sense, because people come out and say, oh, because I'm sad. And I'm not saying that, this is not me saying that being sad doesn't mean that you can't be depressed, but it doesn't necessarily always equate to depression. And I think that there's a tendency for people to then say, oh, because everybody says they're sad and they're depressed, so depression is then watered down. But there's an important factor that we talk about, the reoccurrence or the truth that mental illnesses actually exist. There are people who struggle with bipolar disorders, OCD, all sorts of mental illnesses. Depression is just one of many. And in Nigeria, where we live in, people always just talk about, the only thing we see is, anxiety disorders, which are really important, or one aspect of it, or just talk about depression, while there are other mental illnesses that actually do exist and people are actually struggling with it, and people don't talk about it just because they feel like these things don't exist in Nigeria. Recently, I was having a conversation with someone who works in the same space, and we're talking about the prevalence of OCD amongst Nigerians. And surprisingly, this is someone who has worked in the field for a long time, who is an advocate, and was saying to me, I've had very few patients tell me that they or like being diagnosed with OCD. And do these illnesses exist? Yes. But do we speak about them? No. And I think the press, the media plays a major function in how much we talk about. We bring these things to the light. So if we have people who are actually creating platforms and spaces where they're talking not just about mental health on the surface, I feel like we've done a great job in the last decade talking about mental health awareness at the basic. I would say that almost everyone knows what it is. When we say almost everyone, of course, if you use social media, you've heard of people talking about, oh, my mental health is struggling, or people saying, oh, I'm struggling with my mental health. That's important. But for us as a generation, as millennials, I think it's really important that we dig deep into other parts of mental health, the critical parts, the parts of mental health that people are not really talking about. We talk about the disorders that exist and how people can also have day-to-day activities. Very recently, someone came out on social media to talk about struggling with ADHD. And someone said, oh, that was self-diagnosed. And that's also an aspect I'm going to talk about, because I think now, because of social media, people are quick to diagnose themselves with all mental illnesses. We hear people talking about, oh, I have ADHD. ADHD is actually, or people saying I have OCD, which is something that people actually tend to talk about a lot. You see someone on social media and they're like, oh, my OCD will not let me do this, or my ADHD will not let me concentrate. These are proper mental illnesses that people are struggling with, that some symptoms, if you've ever, or if you know someone who has ever struggled with any of these mental illnesses, you know that this is tough living in those situations. And sometimes if not properly managed, struggling with day-to-day activities and life. So I think that that's an aspect of, I'm just trying to paint a picture of what we're dealing with here. And I think that's where social media comes in, because again, like I mentioned, everybody's on their phone these days. So if you want to get through to us, our generation, I think it's important that we start to leverage on these systems that are existing. People write more. People use the digital space more. We're writing books about mental health. How many people can pick up their book and read stories? Oh, I'm struggling with, say, for example, grief. I'm dealing with grief disorder, prolonged grief disorder, or I'm dealing with, I think I might have OCD. How do I cope? I'm looking for a toolkit that I can use to get by. I know someone who, do I know anyone? And it's easy for us to say, okay, I can go on this YouTube channel, or I can pick up this book, or I can go on this radio station. Let's start having dedicated podcasts or programs that solely dependent on mental health, and not just mental health in the way that it is glamorized in some sort of way. Like I think Victor also mentioned about people who struggle with someone who said they were struggling with suicidal ideations or suicidal thoughts, and that somehow was watered down. I think it's important that we place criticality on these things, and people, when they speak, they understand that, you can't just diagnose yourself with ADHD or OCD or any sort of mental health disorder because you think that you measure up with some of the few symptoms that you've seen. I think it's important that we start to tell people that biological mental health is as important as biological health. People should be able to go to see a psychologist and a therapist. And I'm also going to talk a little bit on the stigma part of it without feeling stigmatized. If someone says I'm in therapy, or someone openly talks about it, one of our favorite celebrities or people we care about on social media, and say, oh, I'm in therapy, do we look at them as what is going on with this person? Or do we think that this is normal? Like someone saying, I'm going to see the doctor and getting prescription. Or if someone says I'm on antidepressants, do we look at them and think, what's going on with this person? I think that we start to normalize these conversations on social media. We start to create the right ample awareness, create those toolkits. And I also think it's important, and I'm just going to also talk a bit on what we expect systematically from our government, that we ensure that, the government knows that one of the ways to get through to the people is social media. Are you hearing about what people are talking about when it comes to the lack of proper, adequate care for mental health? Even though we, as a nation, have not gotten to the point where we're able to integrate mental health care into primary health care, what are we doing? Do we have care centers that are dedicated, not just psychiatric centers, but care centers that are dedicated first aid for mental health? If someone is having a panic attack, if someone is struggling mentally, they are having symptoms that are recurrent, do we have those? Are people trained enough to manage those situations at the basic? So I think it's important that we carry our advocacy to the front. We have policy advocates who are speaking up on social media boldly. I think there are quite a few, but I also think that there's when more people are talking about these things, it becomes very important. People who are actively talking about this on social media and saying, okay, we need a government who is caring for people in terms of mental health policies. We need to leverage on social media. I think that all action starts and stops on social media and what we do with it. So I think it's really important. It plays a huge role for us as a people, and with our government, with us as individuals. I think everyone has a role to play, even with the grassroots. I'm also going to say that a lot of people might not have the privilege of being on Instagram or Facebook, but people have radios at the very least, and people have means newspaper. We need more people, active forces who are having columns that are dedicated to mental health care. Do people read those things and be like, I think that maybe this might be what I'm struggling with? I've seen situations working with my foundation where people are being locked up in churches because maybe their mom or someone of the older generation was schizophrenic, and they just declared the person, quote and unquote, in Nigeria, mad. So the person was being locked up in this hospital, locked up in like a spiritual home, or being flogged. This is because people are not actually, they don't know what it is. So imagine a situation where we have radio stations having a spot every day where they're educating people on what mental health is, how people are struggling. With the rate of the things that are going on in Nigeria, it's almost, forgive me, it's almost unpractical that we are not talking about mental health. Because I think that people are suffering psychologically a lot, not just for us as millennials, but even the older generations or even the Gen Zs. So I think it's really important that social media commits, we use social media as a tool to helping people. So.
All right, thank you so much, Amaka. Thank you for highlighting the importance of social media in this advocate for mental health, because we know that, or we have seen how social media has contributed negatively when it comes to the aspect of mental health. You talk about the pressures, the peer pressures, people wanting to, like, you talk about the financial challenges and how people are constantly being reminded of, how they have to work hard, to be able to make a living. So thank you so much. I think we just have to do more, like you said, the medias have to adopt more strategies to go local, use of newspapers and radio, just to make sure that we are constantly spreading the awareness about mental health. Thank you so much, Chiamaka. That will take us to the next question, which is for Chioma. How can millennials protect themselves from online harassment and cyberbullying? I know we have seen a lot of them also. We are still talking about social media and digital adoption. So how can they protect themselves from online harassment and cyberbullying?
Hello, everybody. Okay, so I like to start with the fact that we know that our energy is in motion, whether we meet people individually or social media. And for most of us, we do not understand that even the social media is an energy. So you see most times when you're feeling very excited, you're feeling very happy, and then all of a sudden you're doom scrolling on one blog, and then you just realize that your energy is sapping and just reducing and reducing. And before you know it, by the end of that 2 hours doom scroll, you realize that the energy that you started with and the energy that you ended with is way different. So for me, I don't follow any blogs. I don't follow anything that would mess with my energy. And I think, number one, that's the way to start. Another thing is proper social media housekeeping. A lot of us don't do that. Now, I mentioned from the beginning that I am the vulnerability queen, so I share a lot. My motto is you cannot shame the shameless. So for me, I've shared, there's nothing that you want to shame me for because I probably have said it myself, right? And I do that. I've been doing mental health for 10 years. I've been probably sharing for 10 years. I live with a mental health condition. I live with bipolar. I live with OCD. I have struggled through mental health, depression, anxiety, and psychosis. I was admitted in a psychiatric hospital. So I always say, if you need a poster girl for what mental health issues are, sometimes come and look at me. And then at the end of the day, it's not just about that. It's being able to go through these struggles, but still high achieving, still getting everything that I need to get, still having a family. I have 2 kids, I have a husband, I'm still keeping a home. Do you get? So at the end of the day, the way social media or the way life has taught us that mental health is you don't function, you're nothing, you cannot, literally, I have to go through a psychiatrist, I have to do this, I have to do that. But at the end of the day, I'm still also functioning on the other end. But for me, one of the things that I do and I take very religiously for my social media is doing proper housekeeping. As I said, number one, I don't follow any blogs that will trigger me. If I see people that I feel like this person is beginning to pressure me or my lifestyle, they are living a lifestyle. And again, I try to, because one of the things that I've learned in my journey, even as self, is being able to understand, am I feeling jealous? Because I know that that's one thing that millennials struggle about. So if, for example, I'm saying, I'm seeing this girl's post and it's triggering me, a part of it is like, maybe it's because you're jealous. So that's why you don't want to see it. But to be honest, to thyself be true. So if you feel like that thing is triggering you to an extent where you don't feel comfortable, please block, please remove, please mute, please restrict. Thank God for social media. I think that one of the things that these social media platforms have done for us is that they also understand that we are human beings too as well. And before we didn't have the capabilities to mute, or to the highest you do is to unfollow. But now we're able to mute, we're able to restrict. And there's a reason for that, because these people are constantly doing their research too and knowing that little things like this may be able to affect other people's emotions. So if you feel that way, please do. For someone like me who shares a lot about my struggle with mental health, one of the things that I've actually noticed is that people love real stories. People love to hear your stories. People want to engage. People want to feel like they're not alone. But then in the midst of sharing too, I've had people who I always say they're projecting, they are telling you the things that they've gone through, but they're saying it in a mean way. So whenever you see bullies online, it's not because they are bullies. There are things that we say something, hurt people. So the reason why they are hurting other people is because they are also hurt too as well. So for me, I keep a clean house. If I see a comment that is uncomfortable for me, I delete, I remove. Sometimes I engage you just to educate you. I'm not going to keep quiet. And then other times I just delete it. But then one of the things I also tell myself is that if I see a comment of about maybe 100 comments, I realize that maybe 95 are actually very good comments. And 5 comments are people who are, trolls and are just trying to project on whatever their current situation is. But the way the human brain is wired is that most times we pick on those negative things. And then so for you, it's a place to ask yourself, why are you picking on those things? Why are you picking on things that don't matter? You have 95 comments that are good, 95 comments that are wonderful, 95 comments that are happy that you've shared, and 5 comments that are telling you something else. Delete and block. Create boundaries. The same way we create boundaries online and offline, we should create boundaries online. I liked when when Olubukola said something about saying no. No is a complete sentence. It is no is a complete sentence. Be able to say no. And if you cannot say no online, do it by deleting, do it by blocking, do it by restricting. Whatever it is that you do, your no is your no, right? Another thing again, on how we can reduce cyberbullying is that I always tell myself truth over algorithm. And we can get so hung up in, we want to have the numbers, we want to have the people that, and I'll give an example. So I started writing very well. I used to write, but I started being very intentional about my writing maybe around May, after I just had a baby. And I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm taking a break from work, but I still want to do things that would feel good to my soul. And I started writing, and I saw how beautifully blew up, right? But then I realized after a while that I started to chase algorithms. So it's like from, you get 200,000 views and you feel happy. And, you went from, I'm just doing this because I want to make an impact, to how many people are liking this, how many people are commenting, and we can get so caught up in that. We can get so caught up in that life of trying to chase algorithm. So for me, I always tell myself impact over algorithm, impact over algorithm. The reason I'm doing this is not because I want, if it is only 2 people that likes whatever it is that I'm doing, it's okay. My message has been passed to those 2 people. If it's only 5, fine. If nobody does, it's still okay. So I keep reminding myself every time, impact over algorithm. And at the time when I now believe that, okay, this thing is becoming overwhelming, I cannot even be, I'm trying to do impact over algorithm, but the human side of me is also taking over where, I'm just caught up. I remove my social media. I think my followers are so used to me that you just realize that I've taken a 1 month break. And I have built myself in such a way that whenever I come back, I see messages like, oh, Choma, we just wanted to check on you. We know that you're doing your 1 month break. We know that you're doing this, your break. And so it is that lifestyle that I've placed in such a way that people are not having, I carry myself offline the way I carry myself online. If I feel like something is disturbing my peace, I just take a break and just go somewhere else, 1 week break, 1 day break, whatever. And that, I put that to my social media. The voice in your head, your mind is supposed to be greater than whatever it is that your environment is pushing to you. That algorithm, you have to be good for you to give others. They always say, don't pour from an empty cup. You cannot pour from an empty cup. So you have to fill yourself enough to fill for other people. And then so if it is a 1 day break you need from social media, fine. Olukola said it, take your curfews. If it is by 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock, you need to just go off. Please go off. I don't pick up my phone till like 10 o'clock. I intentionally do it because the moment you open your phone and you start feeding off the energy of social media, so yes, it just starts to drain you. So for me, I believe that some of these ways are ways that you can manage, online harassment, but just being in control. I think being in control of your social media space, taking breaks when you feel like it's overwhelming, cutting off anybody who you feel like is taking off your energy, even if it is your friend. Your friend is, but then again, you could also ask yourself questions, because I believe that sometimes when you feel jealous, it might be something that you feel that is not in you, that you're seeing in the other person that you need to improve on. So ask yourself questions. I think for us, social media, again, has its goods and its bad, but again, we are in control of our lives. I always say, never allow your mind be the master of you. Always be the master of your mind. So if you're in a situation where you cannot control your mind, then there's something to think about. But if not, be aware, be intentional, and, protect your space. I think that's the most important thing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chioma. Thank you so much. Thank you. You actually overshared everything. Like you said, you don't get keep. Thank you. I think we just have to do a lot more about, defining who we are, and also matching the same energy that we do offline in terms of defining our space and, creating what makes us happy. Also, we should also do that online in terms of filtering the information that you want to take at a time and knowing when to just draw the boundary, because a lot happens on social media, and if you're not able to draw the boundaries, you are always caught up in a situation where you are scrolling endlessly, and then you unaware, you just see yourself thinking about your life. Is it that I'm not doing better, or what is it that I need to do? And I think we just have to do more with filtering our information and the kind of information that we consume online. Yeah, thank you. So let's now look at the next question. That will be for you, Olubukola. How can mindfulness and meditation be used to reduce stress and anxiety? Having to have said a lot today, yes. I think we stressed on anxiety and also stress and all of that. And you also mentioned something about meditation and journaling.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. In short, this particular question is really something very close to my heart because it's something that I practice. So I know that it works. I mean, mindfulness is just about taking time to know that this time is just for me. This time is, I'm just focusing on something that would benefit me. It's very important. See, I always say self-care is not selfish. Self-care is mandatory, and that's where it comes from. You must care for yourself, because if you don't care for yourself first, how will somebody else care for you? If you don't love yourself first, how will somebody else love you? So that has to come, and that is a really big issue for a lot of people, because it's such a subconscious thing that we don't even think about. See, this power of saying no, it's about self-care. Most people don't know that when you care for yourself, you know what does not work for you, and then you say no to it, it has already elevated your mind. That is mindfulness. Now, I'll quickly give some solutions, right? There's one, mindfulness and meditation. Of course, meditation is just you taking time out to focus on something so that you can actually, your body can relax. And how does your body relax when you meditate? It's really about activating your parasympathetic nervous system. Now, you have the sympathetic nervous system or the autonomous nervous system, and you have the parasympathetic nervous system, which is what you call the rest and digestive part of us. Meaning, for all these stressors that we see, that we feel, for you not to let it get into your system, your body and mind has to be at rest. And that parasympathetic nervous system that nature has already bestowed upon us is always quiet unless you activate it. So you must do things that would help you activate it. And these are part of the things that would happen, that will work. There's something I call the traffic jam meditation, which is very quick. It's about really your breathing, learning how to breathe. There is a way that you breathe that activates your parasympathetic nervous system. Let me make it quick. I'll call it the 4-4-8 form of breathing. What does it mean? If you're sitting in traffic and you're getting upset, or anything that is acting to make you upset, take a pause and say, you know what? I'm going to breathe in and out on this. What do? You breathe in, count 4. You hold your breath, count 4. And then you breathe out slowly, counting 8. Just try that. So it's called the 4-4-8 breathing technique. So you do that and you see that your system, because it activates that parasympathetic nervous system that helps your body to just relax and you don't feel stressed. Because a lot of these mental health issues is really from our cortisol level that spikes and stays up. Now, what is cortisol? Cortisol is just our stress hormone that responds to all the stressors around us. And is the thing that will help you run if there's an attack on you. Is the thing that will help you fight if you have to. But then these are supposed to be momentary and they go down and you relax. But when it is constant, when you have all these stressors in our lives that is keeping it constant, that's where the problem starts from. So when you activate your parasympathetic nervous system through meditation, it helps you bring down your cortisol and you will feel much better. Another technique that is, it's a specific kind of meditation technique that I call the 5-4-3-2-1 technique that helps with your senses. We have those 5 senses, which are the senses of, sight, feel, hear, smell, and taste. So when you are in those kind of states, what do? Think about 5 things that you can see very quickly, just like a 5 minutes break. Think about 4 things that you can feel, like you can feel your shoes, like you can feel your clothes on you, Think about 3 things that you can hear. Think about 2 things that you can smell, and think about 1 thing that you can taste. Just doing that calms your system down, and you see that it will help you. It's very, very important, okay? Then, what you call keeping your urge of surfing down, keeping it away, keeping your urge of doing funny things down. Like now, you're craving to check your phone, you're eating junk, or to eat junk food, or and something just makes you very anxious, Instead of you fighting with it, just sit with that sensation. Notice how it feels in your body. Don't do anything. You will observe that sensation will peak at some point in time. And then you just go away. Meaning, instead of you going to eat that junk food, remember somebody talked about nutrition? Junk food is bad for you because junk food would never bring that serotonin out. If anything, it depresses it, and, you will not get the kind of cortisol lowering that you need. So just sit through it and you find that you will not have to act on those funny things that would affect you. Another solution for mindful chores is decide on something physical to do at some point in time, So it could be, because of, all the things that have been happening in our world with the technology, there's so many things that we're not doing that, we should have been doing. We just go through the motions very quickly. Let me give you an example. People don't like washing dishes, but do you know that washing dishes, especially like we Gen X's, in those days that we didn't have dishwashers, we had to wash, but it was those kind of exercises were like helping to, like, how would I put it now? We're helping to trigger our brain to help us at some point in time that we can be mindful. So if you're feeling anxious, go start washing dishes. It's very important. You'll see that your brain will calm down and you feel a lot better. Okay, so it's very important. One other thing that I do is what I call the structured meditation. Somebody mentioned the an app called Calm. Apparently, I do use Calm because when you are in perimenopause, you need to always be remembering about mindfulness and meditation, because that's one thing that will help with your stressful system, calm anxiety down, help you have clarity of your brain. And what do? Just take like 3-4 minutes, okay? And focus on something. And then breathe. You breathe in, you breathe out slowly, and just listen. And you just find that your body will start calming down gradually. So we cannot overemphasize the importance of meditation and mindfulness, because what it does is just to like cut you off from those stressors for those few minutes. And that's really what you need, because those few minutes that you're cut off would help you, activate your parasympathetic nervous system, and that would help you relax and you'll be able to be calmer and do the things that you want to do. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much, Olubukola. Thank you. That was amazing. Like you just totally summarized everything. We could go on and on and on and talk a lot more about mental health and trying to raise awareness. It has been an awesome conversation so far, and because time is no longer on our side, we just have to try to cut some things short. So I'm just going to go briefly around the room to get one last message or one word of encouragement or advice from each and every one of our speakers to our listeners today, or every millennial out there struggling with mental health right now. So let me start with Glory. Just briefly share one word of encouragement for anyone struggling with mental health right now.
Okay, thank you so much for the opportunity. So my final thought to anyone who is struggling with, mental health, be it millennial, be it a caregiver who is navigating life with a child who probably has a mental health condition, would first of all be to remember that you have to tap in to yourself, like stay conscious, be aware of when, because when you're aware, you know when you need to cry out for help. When you are aware, you know when you need to speak up and say, oh, this is what is going wrong. When you are aware, you know when to unplug, you know when to log off. Like Ms. Choma rightly said, she knows when to do social media housekeeping. But you can't even do social media housekeeping if you don't realize that your home is due for housekeeping. If you don't realize that this thing is bringing a lot of negative energy to me, or this peer pressure is getting to me. So we have to stay conscious, be aware of, yourself, your surrounding, stay conscious of how things make you feel. Because when you can understand how maybe a post makes you feel, or how a meal that you have consumed has altered your mood, or left you bloated, you are able to know when to seek for help. The second message I'm going to be leaving them with is consider your meal at every time. So you're going to also be conscious of what you are consuming. You're very conscious of the diet. You're very conscious of your food. Do not grab quick fixes. Be intentional about what you are consuming around the clock for every day you wake up. And then lastly, be empathetic towards yourself and towards someone else, towards people around you, towards how you go about your daily activities, your workplace, your maybe your colleagues, everyone, your home, your children, because children can actually, be a handful. And sometimes we've seen mothers go into different kind of mental health states just by trying to help raise their children. So prioritize support, prioritize asking for help. At every point in time when you feel overwhelmed, you can ask for help, and don't feel too, ashamed or too shy to speak up. Don't push the stigmatization or, whatever sad feeling will come out of you seeking for help. Show it away and just speak up, because the earlier you get help for mental health, the faster the road to recovery. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Glory. Thank you for, highlighting that important point. From Glory, you have to prioritize your mental health. You have to also be self-aware, practice self-awareness, and also take your diet very serious. Thank you. Now let's also get to hear from Victor. Let's get to hear one last point on this matter.
Okay, so thank you very much. To anyone who is listening to this right now, and your heart feels heavy, to those who smile in public, but in their rooms and their private places they break down, or to those who have been carrying pain that no one actually notices, I want them to know, if you're watching this right now, that you are not weak and you are not alone. Mental health challenges does not mean that you failed, and if anything, they actually mean that you are actually a human, and you have been a human in a world that does not pause. Even the strongest minds can bend under too much weight, and sometimes the people that you see who look the most put together are the ones who are fighting the hardest battles silently. The truth is that help exists and healing is possible. Depression, anxiety, ADHD, trauma, these are not moral flaws. They are medical realities and you need to understand that they deserve a lot of care. You need to know that you deserve care, not shame. So the same way anyone would treat malaria or hypertension, that is the same way you can and should treat your mental health. That is all I'd have to say at this point. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much, Victor. That was amazing. Thank you very much for that soothing word from you. Thank you. Now let's get to hear from Chioma also.
Okay, thank you everybody for having me and for listening to me. I would just like to say, as I said, vulnerability, vulnerability, vulnerability. It's not weakness. Leadership and vulnerability can coexist. You can be a leader and still be vulnerable. You can be a leader and still be struggling. Taking care of your mind is not a luxury. It is a responsibility. It is your responsibility. And I think that we need to start being responsible for that part of ourselves. I'm always very thankful when I see corporate institutions putting things like this together, because it means that we're getting to the point where we're having conversations that really matter. So let's continue to build workplaces, homes, and communities where mental health is not an afterthought, but it's the foundation and the core of everything that we do. And then healing is not a destination. It is going to keep happening. It's not linear. It would happen. It will, So let's just listen to our minds. Let's just listen to our hearts. Whenever we feel that we're off, please seek help. Help exists. There are NGOs that are doing wonderful work out there if you cannot afford it. There are specialists who are willing to do pro bono if you cannot afford it. And, let's just keep this conversation going, because your mental health matters. It really does matter. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Chioma. That was amazing. Thank you for your, giving us that final word of encouragement. Thank you. Now let's get to hear from Chiamaka.
Thank you. I just want to say, to encourage everyone, in addition to what everyone else has shared, every other speaker has shared, your biological health, your mental health is as important as your biological health. So I want to encourage you to prioritize it. I also want you to normalize therapy, normalize, no matter what anybody else says. I need you to put you first. I think that's what everyone else has also touched on. You are important as a person. And people might not exactly understand what you're struggling with. Your struggles might be unique, your trauma, your experiences, everything that you've gone through, that's essential to you. You're the only one that knows the rhythm of your body. So I want to encourage you to please seek help if you need help. There's nothing wrong in being in therapy. And like Chioma said, healing is not a destination, it's lifelong. So I want you to give yourself grace through that journey, whether you fall back into a relapse or you feel like it's nothing is happening. I promise you, healing is messy. It's not straightforward. It doesn't always look like the way that we see it in the movies or the way that we expect it. Is tough. So I need you to give yourself grace. Grace is really important to us as millennials and as adults. I also want us to also import for people who live with people who are struggling mentally, to be kind to them, to also learn how to offer them help when they need help, and also to respect their boundaries as well. So that's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Amaka. Thank you. That was really amazing. Thank you. And that will bring us to the end of today's discussion, because we have actually exhausted our time. I want to quickly say thank you to all our amazing panelists. Thank you, Bukola. Thank you, Olubukola. Thank you, Glory. Thank you, Chioma. Thank you, Chamaka. And finally, thank you, Victor. Thank you so much for sharing your experience, wisdom, and heartfelt insight today. And to everyone who have joined us live, I want to quickly say thank you for being part of this important conversation. Let's continue to spread the word about mental health. Let's continue to raise awareness. Let's continue to keep sharing, and also, let's also continue to encourage each other, because mental health is not more like a one-person journey. We have to keep raising the awareness. Thank you so much. I still remain your host, Ethel Adonu, here on Business Day Millennial Hangout. Thank you for joining us, and always remember that you matter a whole lot. Thank you and have a great day.